Welcome to another episode here of Cut Ups. We will get going in a little bit here, having some software update issues going on. So hopefully that gets resolved in a couple minutes. We'll give a few minutes here for Trevor to join. But figured it's 8 o'clock. I'm itching to get the analysis going and hope everyone's doing well on this Sunday evening. Quite an interesting game against Rutgers, right? 31-7, and a lot to learn from this game. I think overall it was obviously not the start you want, especially with Jim Harbaugh coming back, but a game that Michigan definitely controlled after getting some of the heebie-jeebies out, and a nice comfortable win, right? I think a couple plays, the Samaj Morgan touchdown was exceptional to see him. It was great to see Mikey Sainristil step up and really put the game out of reach. So we got a lot of plays. I have some pretty hot takes about the team at this point. And yeah, we'll see how this goes. Yeah, as I mentioned, I went through all the editing, got all of that, and now it's rendering. So I have a couple plays ready. There might be a little bit of delays between plays as my software needs to re-render for whatever reason, but we got plenty of plays to go through. I see Trevor is backstage getting things hooked up. He's getting it going, and we'll give him a couple minutes here. But how you guys doing? Let me know in the comments what were your guys' initial thoughts. I want to get an overall temperature check of the fan base. Welcome to Adam Shepherdson. Who cannot pronounce your name, Adam. Apologies. But yeah, I want to know what your guys' thoughts were from the game. To me, I thought it was a good showing. I'm still seeing a lot of improvements in the running game. How they're using JJ McCarthy, especially. There will be a lot of clips that I show from that was exceptional. To John's question, John A. Schultz, yes, sir. This did just get started. Trevor is joining here shortly, and my software is updating. So we're giving that a little bit of time to buffer for a few plays. And here he is, the man himself, the one, the only.
Can you hear me?
Welcome. I can hear you fine. How are you?
Okay. Good. I don't know if you laughed, so I'm assuming you saw my mic stand broke.
Yeah, you were holding it up
right before I went on. So I've got this extra one. I'm trying to see if I can maneuver here.
I was expecting you to just be I don't even know what they call it, but you just hold it close to your face the whole time. Might tire you out. But
yeah, I think I need a Bob Barker style mic.
That's what I was going for. That's it. That'd be phenomenal.
R.I.P.
That'd be great.
No, I am ecstatic to be back. We talked about in a previous thing I did. My son started school and has begun bringing home the illnesses from the cesspool that is an elementary school. So I've been hit with almost everything for the last month. It feels like I am going to enjoy a little bit of whiskey for the first time in about a month, because I'm so glad to be here with you, Wizard. Yeah, real quick. I'm excited to hear your hot takes. Yeah. I have a few as well. Overall, I thought this game was obviously significantly better than the last. I think the start really shaped how we felt, right? 69-yard touchdown for Rutgers, and then a 3-and-out from the offense. We'll get into it. After that, I thought Michigan played really well. The defense has been excellent, but yeah, long term, the new clock rules are clearly affecting this team.
I agree,
and I'm wondering what their strategy is going to be, versus a Penn State or an Ohio State. Yeah. Or maybe you want a few extra plays, right? But
yeah, okay.
I'm a mess here trying to get good.
Hey man, it's all good.
It's all good. This is a good thing.
It is a good thing. All right, I'm ready to go. I can get into my hot takes. I think it'll be better with the footage to come across it.
For sure.
Real quick, I did ask what people's thoughts were. John said, any thoughts on Notre Dame versus OSU? I was at a wedding. I didn't get to see the full game. I watched some of the highlights. OSU looks vulnerable, right? I'll say that. It seems like they got I don't want to say fortunate because they still, came out and won the game, but it seemed like they were clawing their way to a victory there. So they're
fortunate
mortal.
is accurate.
Yeah, they're mortal. And Ryan Day's comments post game were hilarious. Really, really funny.
And I tend to like Ryan Day. He does a lot of great things when it comes to mental health and being candid about his own situation. And for being the coach of a program I grew up hating, I usually struggle to dislike him. I find him to not be a scumbag like some of the previous coaches, right? That was just a bizarre moment from him.
Really weird.
Very, very bizarre.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as the game goes, I watched the whole thing. I found it rather entertaining because it was a game where I didn't really feel like I could choose which team I wanted to win or lose. So I was just able to watch and enjoy a good game. I think Ohio State's defense is better than I expected. I didn't think the Knowles hire would work out, bringing the Big 12 over, but they look better. I thought Notre Dame's defense also looked better too. So I'm torn right now with, or maybe their offense is not as good as we expected. These teams looked pretty even. So it's possible they're both better than we realized, and it's possible they're both not as good as we think too, right? So I think we'll need more games for evidence. But man, would the narrative be different? McCord doesn't make that big third down throw, and obviously Notre Dame has 11 guys on the field, and maybe they stop Ohio State from scoring that winning touchtouchdown.
Right.
It'd be an interesting narrative today around Ryan Day and Ohio State instead of just I'm being mad at an 88-year-old man or whatever.
I kind of thought back to, I forget what year it was, where Michigan State, I don't know if it was their 3-9 year, but it was like a top 15 matchup between them and Notre Dame. And both Michigan State and Notre Dame, it was like a relatively competitive game, but both teams went on to be like 3-9 and 4-8. And obviously this isn't that. I think they're both clearly top 25 teams, but where do they fall? Are they within the 10 to 20 range, or are they truly both top 10 caliber? So
I'll give you my hot take real quick, and then we can jump into this. If you ask me today, I've got Penn State above Ohio State.
I think that's fair.
They remind me so much of 2021 Michigan. I think they are absolutely built to beat Ohio State the way Michigan has. And then when you start talking about Michigan having to go to Happy Valley and play a team that is so evenly matched with them, I think the Nittany Lions are in a really good spot. That's my take out of this weekend. They embarrassed Iowa, and I'm still not sure what we've got with the Buckeyes and Notre Dame.
Yeah. A lot of narratives being built. Let's build on Michigan's narrative with some film review. Look at that.
It smells so good, dude.
All right, you good to go?
Yeah, whatever.
I got
I'm trying to think of something witty, and it would have been stupid. So let's move on.
All right, jumping in here, 3rd and 4. And I mean, we got to start with it, right? Biggest play of the day for Rutgers, without a doubt. And welcome back, Rod Moore, right? That's kind of what we get here. And that's really where the analysis starts and ends. Nothing that special with this play, just a simple slant. I thought it was an excellent route. It actually got Mike Sainristil, right, on skates a little bit, and then Rod Moore just misses. And so give 6 credit here, right? The starting to the outside here. Let me get my colors all right. Oh boy, here we go. A little outside move, and then he cuts up. And Mike Sainristil not able to get contact with him here, and he bites way too hard with that right foot. Mike Sainristil does, and it slips. You can see that right foot step out, and it doesn't catch. So he's not able to plant off that right foot. Number 6 is able to make that inside move and get there. Couple things about the coverage here. You see Braden McGregor dropping back into coverage here. So could he do a little bit better job sitting in the slant area here, right? Because to me, you have Mike Sainristil more responsible to the back here, and that's why you have Braden McGregor dropping back for this slant zone. And I think Braden McGregor maybe sits a little bit too far away from the middle of the field. But then even with those two things, right, Mike Sainristil slipping, even with Braden McGregor maybe not following the eyes of the quarterback appropriately here, you're supposed to have the safety there that comes down, makes that play, and that's just a bad angle, right? It's just a bad angle. Getting back to health and getting back to game speed are two different things. And here we see exactly that. right? You may have a healthier or close to fully healthy version of Rod Moore, but maybe not up to speed, right? He doesn't have that brace on the leg anymore, but got his ankles broken on that. So not great. Not what you want to start the play. I mean, this is 1 minute into a game, 45 seconds into the play. And I don't have a good explanation for what Rod Moore is doing here, right? To me, this is a relatively clear angle that this wide receiver is going on. Rod Moore needs to attack, right? I think he's a little bit hesitant here, but he's also kind of bracketing. He doesn't appropriately judge the trajectory of this wide receiver here, and he's just in the wrong place. So he doesn't set himself up well to make a tackle here. And that's out of character, right? That's not what we expect from Rod Moore. I expect this to be his worst play, right? I'm knocking on wood as I say that, but I can't remember last time I saw that big of a mistake from Rod Moore. And like I said,
even as a freshman, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he's been one of the better secondary defenders for Michigan for a couple of years now, or at least up there. So that's very uncharacteristic of him. So, give him credit. I feel like they attacked him, right? I feel like Rutgers recognized that, hey, this is this guy's first game back. Let's try to put some pressure here, and Wimsatt, accuracy issues in the previous weeks aside, that's a good ball. So give him credit, and they capitalize early.
Yeah, I mean, this is the shaking off the rust, right? Rod Moore's been, not only banged up to start the season, but going back into the fall camp and some of the off season. So I don't know if there's an argument to be made. This is why you play him a little bit early on. Obviously, he's been getting dressed and warming up. I will tell you, Brock, who's been in the building, last week said he did not look good in warm-ups. So I think the only way he's going to get that rust off is on the football field, but that doesn't mean you throw him out there early either, right? Michigan was able to win those first 3 games comfortably, able to win this one as well. And yeah, I'm not going to pick on the dude. Rod Moore is one of the best safeties in the country. I guess this will be the worst play of the year for him, and we're only looking up moving forward.
Yeah, and to the one comment here from John saying no real pressure here, this is a relatively quick pass. Any sort of slant is going to be, since it's out of shotgun, you don't really get a 3-step drop, but if you can kind of picture a 3-step drop, he's getting the ball out maybe just a beat after that. So I think Rutgers was doing that all day. And sure, maybe there wasn't like a whole lot of pressure compared to last week, but this wasn't a play necessarily where I was like, oh man, he's holding the ball for forever. Okay, let's move into offense here. And it was shaky right after that touchdown. You want your offense to come out and be able to respond. You start with good field position, and then I believe this was a 3-and-out. So we don't actually get a downfield view of what J.J. McCarthy is looking at, but you can tell by his eyes he doesn't like what he sees. And it doesn't seem like at the time that right now he's kind of feeling that pressure on this blitz, it doesn't seem like there's anything really developing, right? Nothing that he's looking at here, at least between these two, Barner and Roman Wilson, doesn't look like many great options, right? So clever little stunt here from Rutgers. They're actually dropping 23 into coverage. So he's faking off the edge. He's dropping out. And then you're sending a slant for 90 and 71, bringing 22 across here. And that's pretty difficult for Michigan to pick up, right? I'd say they do admirably here. They do admirably on picking this up. Good pass off from Trevor Keegan here to Nugent of 71 while 22 is coming. So good eyes here from Keegan to pick that up, and good coordination with Nugent to pick up 71 to allow Keegan to address that. So it's good initial movement, right? And J.J. McCarthy's eyes came here, didn't like what he saw. He shifted them here. So now he's on to his third read, essentially, second or third read, tries to come back. Nothing's coming open. And now it's 22, again, able to continue on his trajectory towards the football. So it's good initial, right, pickup of that blitz. I think if you're J.J. McCarthy, maybe duck out a little earlier, right? Right now, if he didn't like what he initially saw across the middle of the field, they ain't checked, and now he's going here, it's hard because that's a linebacker, and you can't really expect your lineman in this sort of situation here to continue to stay engaged with that. So the guy's coming from behind the play, just gets his ankles. chalk this one up to good coverage and probably not many great options for JJ McCarthy. So Rutgers came out hot on both sides of the ball, and it was looking shaky on these first two plays.
Good call out for the interior. I think, we've had a lot of conversation about the offensive line. We probably will tonight. I think Nugent has really stepped up each week at center, not only in his play, but also his calls. We talked about that in the first week or two. And, him, Zinter, and Keegan seem to be doing really well. But yeah, like you said, not being able to see. But if they're bringing 4 and he can't get rid of it, then you're going to call that a coverage sack most likely.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, again, I absolutely call this a coverage sack. This is probably what he's looking at the top of the screen, but that looks like decent coverage down the sideline. And if he does take off, your argument could be, maybe try to go this way or run this way, but you do have a linebacker sitting here. So the goal, obviously, you got Barner here, you got Cornelius Johnson, you have Rowan Wilson. So that's what he's trying to do, right? Step up, extend the play like he usually does. He doesn't have eyes in the back of his head to realize this threat. So again, this is one of those plays where you give credit to the defense for making the play, and if things aren't open, try to make things happen. In this case, defense just made a solid play. So forced to punt here, 1st and 10. And this was one that even though there was a hold, I would like to see a little bit better on the edge here for Josiah Stewart, right? Where I think, is it a hold? Yes, right? And does Josiah Stewart make this play if there isn't a hold on the edge? Is a better view of it? Maybe, right? Maybe. But he needs to be doing a better job with what his responsibility is. And I feel like that's been the consistent theme of Josiah Stewart.
We've seen this exact play this year. I don't remember which game it was, but we talked about this exact play where he's moving inside and not doing his job on the play.
Because you can tell exactly where the responsibilities of the gaps are, right? And you can tell that because honestly, I trust Chris Jenkins, right? And what is he doing? He's working inside of this offensive lineman here. He's working to the inside. You have Makari Page flying up right here for, I think, what would this be? The C gap. Or maybe this would be the B gap. Let me back up. Where's the center here? Yeah, so that would be the B gap. You have Makari Page right there, right? Makari Page is responsible for this gap. So if you're Josiah Stewart, I understand this guy's huge, right? This guy's a big guy. But getting your eyes into this B gap to see what's going on, that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility, stand your ground, keep your outside shoulder free, and condense, and don't let this guy drive you to create a gap for the B gap, but also keep your outside arm free in case there's any bounce. Be prepared for any bounce here. So moving forward with the play, yeah, there's a hold right here. There is a little bit, right? But how many times do you see plays like this not get called? And honestly, I don't think that offensive lineman needed to necessarily hold, because at this point, I feel like Stewart may already have been not able to make that tackle. At best, I feel like he's going for the ankles here, and that could be something the running back's able to work through. So regardless, need to do a better job. Don't get greedy with your eyes, right? Trust that your defenders will be responsible for that B gap. You have the outside of the tackle. So that's something where I really like the skill set of Josiah Stewart, but if you're not able to consistently respect that responsibility and trust your teammates, you're going to get burned. And then the other aspect, again, I think this could be also a clever attack sort of strategy for Rutgers. What are they doing with number 9? They're running him just kind of on an inside. It looks like a slant, right? A play that was just successful in the last play. And this is Will Johnson, his first game back as well. So he's following this. This is essentially a crack block trying to get to the safety coming up here. And, if this is Mike Sainer still, he probably recognizes what's going on here, right? But this guy is essentially taking out 2 players by going to block here because Will Johnson's going to follow like it's an actual passing route. So Will Johnson's a little bit late, right? Just a little bit late reacting out there. He has all the athleticism in the world, but he just follows a little bit too much, not able to reroute his momentum towards the edge here. So that's 2 things, right? And it's just responsibility and in one case of Josiah Stewart, not trusting your teammates, and the other one, just a younger player in Will Johnson, trust your eyes, right? Get a better sense of the game. That'll come with time. But he's also getting back to game speed, right? So maybe he's a half step slow on recognition of things like that. So fortunately, this one was called back, but I was starting to feel worried after these first two plays. I don't know about you, Trevor.
Well, and this is such a textbook example of why 11 guys have to do their job and one guy can ruin a play.
Right.
Because this is an inside give. If you watch, the RPO read is to the right. So Junior Colson is the one that's supposed to be going with Wimsatt at the top. And you can see him reading. Saner's still up top. Because everyone else on the line does such a good job of filling the blocks, there's no inside run. Stewart moves to the inside, and look, now I've got this huge lane. The receiver has dragged Will Johnson out of position, and he gets the block of Makari Page, exactly like you said.
Yep.
So Stewart's trying to make a play here when really all he has to do is stand there and set the edge, and the rest of the guys are going to get home and get that running back.
Yes.
Right. So you could argue again, everyone else did their job in the box, and except, Will got dragged, but he's following his, receiver, whatever. But yeah, you see right here, Wimsatt makes the read, gives it, and he's able to cut out and get away from that pile that's in front of him.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes making a play is just doing your job, right? If Josiah Stewart does his job, then the entire defense made the play, and it doesn't have to be one person. Sometimes there's opportunities to make plays, but 99% of the time, if you're doing your job, the opportunity to make plays will present themselves to you. So
we talk about those assists.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. We don't have a way to data show it, but if he sets the edge there and the back has nowhere else to go, and maybe Jenkins gets the tackle, Stewart's the one that made the play, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Now we're in third down here, and this is kind of what we were saying, where there's going to be opportunities to make plays. And this is one where I feel like the alignment of Michigan gets them a tackle for loss here, where they simply overload the top of the screen, and you're asking an unrealistic job of Rutgers, and they just frankly kind of mess up here, where when you have three guys at the top of your screen here that you're showing for Michigan, you probably want to address that with your three most linemen on the right side here. So they miss that shift, right? 65 goes out to the edgemost defender, and the right guard goes out to nobody. So again, if you're doing your job, right, attack your gap here. What are your gaps? Opportunities will present themselves to make a play. And Derek Moore is there and says, "Hello, sir," and makes the tackle for loss. The only other thing to really call out here is Kenneth Grant continuing just to be a mammoth and just constantly get into the backfield, right? I mean, that first step of the center doesn't help him that much, right? But Kenneth Grant is still there to swallow the guy up. So again, was Rutgers perfect? Absolutely not. They were able to take advantage of some things. I like some of their players, but when you just do your job and break down, play sound football, opportunities will present themselves. And I mainly include that for that reason of the last play. Everyone was doing just little things, but when mistakes are made, make the opponent pay for them. And that's what Derek Moore does here. So just solid play, and picks up an easy tackle for a loss.
I think Kenneth Grant is probably going to be Bruce Feldman's number one freak next year.
Oh, yeah.
On the freak list that he does, and Derek Moore probably won't be far behind him.
Yeah. So I had a tweet I wanted to send out where I said if Kenneth Grant had a proper high school nutritionist, and this isn't a knock on his high school.
Most don't. Right.
Yeah, because who knows how to handle a 350-plus pound guy, he would have been a 5-star without a doubt.
Yep.
Because he was just really like probably 6 months to 9 months away of shaping his body to being a 5-star. And that's truly where I feel like he's at now. Maybe even, above like a traditional 5-star, if that makes sense. It probably doesn't, but he's that special to this defense.
Him and Mason Graham, Graham had a similar situation with COVID and blah, 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 whatever, just that class. But those are, if you re-rank those classes, those are top 30 players. Mm-hmm. Absolute steals.
Yeah. I want to include this for no other reason but just to give respect to punters. So there's no analysis here, except for I don't blame Thaw for not catching this, because this guy runs like 15 yards with the ball and then on the fly boots this 65 yards without it. Like, I'm not exaggerating there. This is from like the 11, right? From the 11, ball doesn't land until close to the 25. That's 26-yard line. So that's 63 yards through the air with the defender right there. Now, the one thing I did want to call out about this, maybe you could make the argument, run into this guy, right? Run into this guy. Because it does bounce like right in front of that guy. So if you run through him, maybe you can get a catch interference penalty or something. But it's just a ridiculous punt. And I know there's been a lot of criticisms of him because there have been instances where he hasn't fielded a punt appropriately. But sometimes you got to give a punter his due, because he is on the run punting 63 yards through the air, and it ends up being like, I think, a 70-yard punt on the 75-yard punt on the stat sheet. So just an absolute bomb. And can't stress enough how important special teams are. And I think that punter is, you could argue, one of the most valuable players for Rutgers. It's wild. And Adam, how do you catch that, Adam? Am I crazy for that statement, Trevor? Do you agree with my statement that you have to catch this? I feel like it's impossible to recognize that a punt's going to go 63 yards through the air and that far to the side. I don't know. It seems crazy to me that anyone would expect anybody to catch that punt.
This is why I would kill for all 22 film, because he's on the opposite hash.
Yeah.
25 yards away from that. Like, he's booking it to get to that spot.
Yeah.
So I do think everything we've seen with Thaw, and more importantly, everything we've seen with Tyler Morris, is shaping a lot of people's perception. And I tend to agree. I'm not really sure why Morris wouldn't be back there every time at this point.
True.
It seems to be there's some situational decisions that they're making.
Yeah.
This, like you said, though, this isn't one I would necessarily peg on him. And I forgot. Remember the Aussie punter craze? Everybody had one.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, that's just a ridiculous boot.
And Channel F, I don't think I actually clipped this one, but there was a punt later in the game where instead of rolling to the right, he rolled to the left and punted with his right. And I don't think it wasn't obviously a boot like this, but that's crazy to be running to your left and still punt right. Makes no sense to me. These guys are mutants. It's crazy. And okay, last comment here, and then I'll move on to actual analysis. Get deeper. Dude, it's 65-yard punt. This is the first punt of the game. How do you expect a guy to boot it 63 yards through the air? I can't.
And again, it landed probably 35 yards horizontally,
right,
from where he started. Too.
Yeah.
So like I said, I get it. The entire story of Thaw versus Morris, but
yeah,
I don't know if you think Tyler Morris was underneath that and catching it. He wasn't.
Right. Yeah. I think I agree with the sentiment of you have to be catching more punts than you are. That one, I'm going to give anyone a pass for not catching. Okay. So let's move on to a play.
He's Rutgers' best players.
Maybe, man.
Future Iowa transfer?
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Torrey Taylor's gone, and you bring in this behemoth of a punter. He's a madman. Okay. So Blake Corum, just, again, I feel like the narrative of earlier games was running backs leaving yards on the field. I feel like that was something that was constantly coming up. And this was one where you look at the line of scrimmage here and you pause, like right when he receives the ball, and it's like, how many yards is he going to get? Maybe like 5, and that's optimistic. And this is just a running back creating yards, right? That's all this is, where you can see from the linebacker's point of view where Blake Corum is threatening, right? You have a double team here. In ideal world, you'd probably want one of these guys releasing a little bit earlier. Same with this double team. You'd want one of these guys releasing a little bit earlier. They're not at that point, right? They're still stuck on their blocks. And you can see the threat of Blake Corum to this hole where these two linebackers are looking. But Blake Corum doesn't like what he sees there, right? He probably doesn't see enough of a gap. They are falling off there of those blocks, right? Your offensive linemen, I think this is Zinter and Keegan are dropping off to block this. that's going to create just kind of a mess here, right? So that's where you see Blake Corum's patience, and then bounce to the outside, right? And give credit to, I think that's Barner on your right side, or is that Hibner? I think that's Matthew Hibner on the right tight end there with a good block, and that really springs this open. And then the rest is just picking up extra yards, right? Little hurdle. And again, I think last week kind of eradicated any of those thoughts about how healthy is Blake Corum. This is very reminiscent. You dropped this amongst his 2022 highlights, and I don't think anyone's skipping a beat or saying anything different. Looks like the same guy that we all grew to really appreciate last year. So exceptional vision, good patience, and maximizing the yards, more yards than I would expect most running backs to ever get out of this situation.
Yep, 50 of Corum's 97 yards on Saturday came after contact, which that's the kind of Corum we're used to for sure.
Right. Yeah. So I love this little hip step, right? And that little skip, recognition, get them to bite, and then outside, right? And against 95% of linebackers, 22 there, you're not able to get out there, right? We saw it last year against Jack Campbell, who's now a Detroit Lion. Even all Big Ten level linebackers are going to have a really hard time at this moment right there being able for 22 to respond to that, right? That's why he's special. That's why he was the favorite for Heisman last year. And I'm excited to see him back in this because it's like, all right, it's Bowling Green. And now I think this was, you could argue, one of his best games as well. And it's against a Big Ten opponent. So, and I love the aggressiveness. I feel like there was a lot of aggressiveness from his running as well. We'll get to that later. This was where I was worried about JJ McCarthy. And again, there's not a whole lot to analyze beyond this. This is a simple out route that JJ McCarthy times well, but doesn't put on the same accuracy we saw all year, right? First two games, what was it, 88 point something % accuracy for those two games. And he lived off of this. Yes, it's a difficult throw, right? You're from the opposite hash on an out route that needs to be on a line. It's not easy. But you expect him to make those throws. Perfectly clean pocket. Of course, it's a quick throw, so you expect it to be. What about his mechanics? I'm not a QB guru, right? But it does seem like he's maybe opening a little bit too much, stepping a little horizontally instead of towards the throw. That's the only thing I see. But again, I'm not a QB footwork guru there. But that would track, right? Like you step where you throw, right? And that's a baseball term, I think. But if you're stepping too far to the left here instead of forward, that would explain why the ball is a little bit too far in front. But this was very unorthodox to see out of JJ McCarthy. It felt so weird to see this open of a route and JJ McCarthy miss it. So yeah, really odd. And this is where I was like, when are we going to see the first two game version of JJ McCarthy here?
I just hate this being his second throw of the game.
Great point.
This is a difficult throw, not for somebody like JJ McCarthy. That's what makes him an elite quarterback.
Right.
That's the differentiator. You're 100% right. His footwork, if you look at the first two games, he's already starting his throw before he's even back. Yeah. And then that's what's causing that late. Like if you watch his back leg, he's releasing his torque way too early here. And that's forcing him to drive a little extra more. So we'll get into it as we go on. I think they did a much better job of getting him comfortable from here on out. I agree. That's a throw. It's a tough throw across whatever. I hate that being his second throw.
Sure.
I agree. Think we've seen JJ when he's successful. You've got Roman Wilson. You've got Donovan Edwards. We've even seen Corum to some extent. Some of the tight ends do these little drop downs, get guys open in space, let them, work a little bit first, let him build up his confidence and start hitting some of these throws. I loved seeing the play action. I was all over that last week. I didn't think they did enough play action. And then ironically, the stats for play action coming out of this one weren't as good. But yeah, with the context of the rest of the game, I look at this and go, yeah. But in the moment, it was like, oh no. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. The thing I really like they did a ton this game, and I need to go back and see if they did this a lot. They sent Roman Wilson on this motion a ton before sending him out on the routes. And I think it's twofold. I think in this case, what this does, it shifts the responsibility from this wide receiver who's in press to then this wide receiver. So I think they like getting Roman Wilson in these situations where the cornerback in responsibility for him, and I have to double check. Maybe this guy's a safety as well. So you can get a lot of favorable matchups by sending these guys in motion and shift the responsibilities of these wide receivers. But then also you're getting your fastest player in motion at the time of the snap. So you're getting his momentum. It's almost like, what is it, Canadian Football League, where the guys are able to get up to a full sprint. Yeah, arena football. That's it.
Run up to the line. That's right.
Yeah. So it's like, take advantage of that, right? If your guy is able to get up to speed and then able to continue on his route, like that's a great way to do it. So I think that's something that Michigan has probably realized, that, hey, when he has a free release, right, look how far off the guy is from the line of scrimmage and how much harder it is for this wide receiver now to get a good jam on this wide receiver because he's shifting, right? He has to move and he's still in motion by the time the snap goes. So an outside release is much easier for this wide receiver. So a little thing I noticed, where if you're starting statically, it's pretty easy to get your hands on a wide receiver, but watch the outside release here from your wide receiver. He's able to get going much more freely because that wide receiver, or I'm sorry, the defensive back has to motion and still get set. And he's not actually set. So his alignment isn't perfect to react and get that initial punch on the wide receiver like you'd like to. So little things like that can really make it a more favorable route and things a little bit easier for your wide receivers. Thought that was cool. Okay, moving on. We are sending Donovan Edwards out here into the slot, into motion, and he just gets lost, right? And again, motion can make things hectic for a defense. I think that's exactly what we're seeing here, where when you send him out, right, this causes a little bit of confusion where it's like, who's on Donovan Edwards, right? And you think number 17 is probably responsible for him, right? I'm not 100% sure on the exact coverage of this play. We'll have to double check. But when he goes in motion, right, you would expect someone to have him, probably this linebacker, right? He starts to follow, but him stopping on his follow here, he probably is thinking that this linebacker will pick this up, but there's obviously a missed communication here somewhere, because Donovan Edwards continues across. You see number 22, there was a little flinch here where he was like, oh crap, do I have him? You see it, he kind of just flinched a little bit at the snap. He's like, he starts to move outside and then he kind of abandons it. He's like, I don't know where I'm going to be. And then also look at the routes for both Colston Loveland and your outside receiver. I think this is Tyler Morris. They're just here to get in the way of anybody who's responsible for this little flare route, wheel route, whatever you want to call it here for Donovan Edwards, right? They're just decoys. They are running out to get in the way, right? Don't block, but just make it more difficult for one of those linebackers, anyone responsible, to get out there. And he just has a ton of room. So I think going back to your point, Trevor, of set your quarterback up for a couple throws, right? And I think they saw that first out route and said, we need to make things a little easy here for JJ McCarthy to get that arm warmed up, get that confidence going, get things moving and get him more reps. Honestly, that's one thing. You had 3 and out in the first drive, right? You want to continue. This is 3rd and 2. You don't want to be down 7-0 and possibly end the first quarter without your quarterback having a number of meaningful snaps. So I'm glad they broke out this play to get the crowd going a little bit, get him seeing success, right? And did they want to break out this play in this situation? Probably not, but I'm glad they took it out and said, you know what, let's get this offense past the midfield mark and get a huge pickup.
I like Michigan's offense when Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards are on the field, or if they're in 12 personnel and you've got Barner and Loveland.
Yeah.
Because those 4 players can do a lot of things.
They
right?
can.
Loveland can line up in the slot. Barner can. They can be in line. They can go out wide like wide receivers. Edwards can do that. quorum, etc. And then, just a tendency breaker. It's 3rd and 2. Rutgers is bringing heat. They absolutely think this is an inside give to Blake Corum. And so much so, they're willing to let Donovan Edwards walk right across their face.
Yeah, it's one of these things where, and this is the point where I'm starting to render some of the footage, so excuse me if after each play I need to stall for 20 seconds. But it's something where Donovan Edwards hasn't really shown up that much as a running back, right? We saw some run for Khalil Mullings in this game. How effective is this going to be if he doesn't have that same level of threat that a Blake Corum does out of the backfield? We'll see. And I think that's one of the hot takes I'll get to a little bit later. But his receiving threat is huge, and you have to respect him out of the backfield. It's kind of like an alternate reality of what I wanted to see out of a Jabril Peppers in a main offensive role. I kind of see for what they're doing with Donovan Edwards, and I want to see them continue to build out that package. I'm sure we're only seeing a small portion of it. But yeah.
Donovan Edwards is wide receiver 3 at this point.
Yeah, I agree. One thing, Adam questions here: shouldn't that pass be behind the line of scrimmage, or could it be called a pick play? I think it's definitely I wouldn't call it a pick play because no one is actually stopping here. And usually when I call it a pick play, I think it's more of like if he just stops here, right, then maybe I would call that a pick play. If he just turns around, but he's continuing on his route, so it's almost I don't know, a get in the way play. So yeah, I mean, you could call it a pick play. I think it qualifies as that, but that is not enough of contact to ever be called pass interference. So I don't think it's supposed to be behind the line of scrimmage because that contact is not enough to ever warrant offensive pass interference to me.
It's got to be more of an engage.
Yeah.
Right. You need to see him engage. And also too, we talk about you can call holding on every single play.
Right.
When it comes to these pick plays, if the ref thinks the defender is making the play, if the pick doesn't happen, they're going to make that call. Sure. He's so out of position at this point anyway. Like,
right.
You can't say like, oh, we got through the flag here. It's the only reason Edwards sprung. Right. So, and I like that they kept the flag in the pocket.
Yeah. And I also like to consider like who is initiating the contact here is you don't see a big motion out of Loveland here to reach his arms out and make first contact. It's kind of 50-50. And when it's 50-50 right here at the point of contact, you see that arm is kind of already raising for the Rutgers linebacker. You could pretty much call that incidental. Even though there's purpose behind it, it's very much like incidental contact, I would say. No one is holding the block for that long. It's almost like Loveland is doing like a little swim move to get past it. So there's when it's at that level, it'd be really rare to see anything called on that.
I'm going to comment on something real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
This narrative with Edwards, menace as a slot receiver. He's not. Most of his damage as a receiver either comes out of the backfield or on the outside.
Yeah.
And this is just statistically proven across college and NFL. Whether it's Christian McCaffrey or any of these running backs, you put them in the slot, you lose the advantage you gain of having them as a receiver.
Right.
So yeah. Edwards' best game receiving against Maryland, he took 2 snaps in the slot. Right. And McCaffrey's another guy that takes maybe 10% of his wide receiver slots. So snaps in the slot.
And because you have to think about who is the guy that is responsible for them out of the backfield for passing scenarios. It's usually a linebacker, right? If you start a guy out in the slot, then you're usually putting a nickel guy, sometimes even a corner. You'll have a nickel corner or a safety out there on him. A safety can generally, or I would expect a safety to generally cover Donovan Edwards pretty well. Donovan Edwards is still an excellent athlete. He'll get his there, but he doesn't have the enormous advantage that he does against a linebacker if he's a true slot. So motioning him out there while still threatening him as a running back with running back responsibilities, that's exactly what you're saying, Trevor, where that value is instead of being a true slot where the defense can game plan and have more traditional cover guys on him in that scenario. Okay, moving on here. Michigan's driving here, right? And back-to-back little gadget plays. And this one, I'm going to call straight up impossible to cover. Where the last one, someone just completely – I mean, the last one I would say is difficult, right? You need to switch a lot of bodies to get someone out to the flat there on Donovan Edwards. In this one, you're asking a really tough job. I think they're picking on the same linebacker here, honestly. But you're asking this guy right here to read this tight end for how long, right? Because you have the handoff here, reverse here, pitch back here, and just watch these two guys real quick, especially Loveland. How long he stays in here, right? Gets a little chip here on 17, and then he's gone, right? You really expect 22, his eyes, to stay here the entire time, right? And then also you have to consider there's Blake Corum coming out of the backfield. So honestly, I'm not exactly sure who's even possible to be responsible for this, because you're also saying to clear out here. I think it was Tyler Morris, right? He's clearing out.
I don't think that's in the defensive playbook. Hey,
yeah,
if they do this and then that and then this, you need to go here.
Yeah. So this is something that's terrifying to put on film, because whenever you have a tight end like that is initially in on blocking, right here, you say this guy's going to eventually go out and catch this ball. It's like the only way you defend this is have a guy out here waiting in case a blocking tight end goes out for a pass. And that's so insanely inefficient of a defense to be waiting on a blocker. You're taking yourself out of the play for something that's very minimally going to happen, right? Oftentimes guys will keep tight ends in for pass protection. And in this case, right, he just releases extremely late, the latest release you'll ever see of a tight end on a play. So give a lot of credit for the offensive line. This is a clean pocket, and it's one where obviously Michigan has max protect here for the same reason, right? You're not actually sending out Blake Corum, right? You're keeping him in here to pick up anyone that Colston Loveland will be leaving, right? But Colston Loveland does a good job here, good blocks all around. And I really love that, because you stress these linebackers. They see this reverse, right? They see the ball pitch back here. Both these guys, and this guy as well, all of these second level defenders have to worry about any of these guys going out on a potential route, right? So that opens up the center of your field, or at least more downfield than where these running backs are, because of just how many weapons you have. All these guys are terrifying at this point. So you really stretch out the defense. I don't know how you defend it. And there's so many iterations that you can do on this, right? Where instead of sending out Colston Loveland on this, right, then you send out Blake Corum after he pitched it off to Donovan Edwards, right? And he's gone down the sideline. You could
keep it.
Yeah, you could do a fake here, and then Edwards goes out and you throw it to him. Mm-hmm. You could do a fake pitch back and Edwards goes. Like, there's so much you're threatening here that when people, like, I don't know if I saw reactions, but I thought about the initial reaction that I maybe had. I think I probably had as well, where it's like, oh, I'm upset I'm upset that we put it on film for this game. Like, it felt like this would work for anything, right? And that we could have held this on against Penn State or against Ohio State. Like, oh, I'm a little mad we had to pull it out against Rutgers. But think about how much time and how scary this is to defend for all those iterations that I just pointed out. All of them could conceivably work. And you have guys going in every which direction on this defense. You have linebackers like running everywhere like chickens with their heads cut off, because what else are you going to do? So putting this on film, you put all of those seeds of an idea into a defense where it's like, well, shit, we got to cover all these other iterations that they probably have off of this play. And that's a nightmare. And that seems like a lot of time to prepare for all of those different iterations, which is really fun. So again, one of those plays that that is damn near impossible to defend against, and really fun usage of literally three of Michigan's best weapons in threatening Corum, Edwards, and Loveland, and picking up a huge chunk.
Yep, we just talked about it last play, right? This is This is going to be Michigan's bread and butter. And hey, I'll keep beating the iteration drum. Let's say they sell out for Loveland. Guess who's wide open in the end zone? Tyler Morris.
Right.
Like this play is ridiculous. There's a bunch of versions of it that could exist. I have no problem with it getting on tape. And then I thought that was probably Barnhart's best block of the day. Probably a hold. There's a good reason they wear white gloves. But
right up here. Yeah. Let's watch it.
You watch his right shoulder. He gets under there pretty good.
Yeah, that's true. But it is usually that, right? It's usually the case where if your body's in front of him, right? Exactly. Like if you're staying step for step for him, if it's the left hand that's holding like that, right? At this point, then yeah, maybe. It's a good point. That's why they wear white gloves.
Yeah. Because it's not a hold, but again, if you see when they first came out with the Jordan uniforms, the whole thing at home was there was not going to be white anymore, right? The chin straps aren't even white. They're navy blue. Like, we're not going to wear anything white at home anymore. They had the blue gloves, and they had a bunch of PIs called, and the white gloves started coming out. So, but no, we've been picking on the tackles quite a bit, and I thought Barnhart did a great job on this play.
Yeah.
Especially slow developing, right? So.
Right. Yeah, I gotta render this play.
I'm trying to buy any time, buddy.
No, I totally forgot. I was just reading the comments here. Sharon Harbaugh will have tons up his sleeve in big games, waiting for more RPO. JJ will kill it. I'm thinking of even a scenario where after that you can design a sort of like QB delay where then JJ McCarthy can run it and you have both Corum and Edwards out in front blocking or something crazy.
We're going to do the Ohio State game this year and talk about plays like this that we saw earlier in the season.
I hope so.
Well, we did it last year. We did 21 in, right? Remember when they did blank and now this time they did this? That's where this is heading. So.
Yep. All right, moving into 3rd and 4 here. This was just Gavin Wimsatt. I just wanted to give him a little bit of credit where I don't know if Michigan will face a quarterback this athletic all year. And it's one of those plays I have kind of a hard time faulting anybody where I feel like this is the right reaction to a stunt that Michigan had on this play. Because it seems like, to me, there's a stunt between Cam Good and Braden McGregor, where Braden McGregor is shooting this A gap, go off the butt of this center, and Cam Good is supposed to loop around. That inherently is going to create a gap, right? Because Braden McGregor is getting into the backfield here. He does a good job on his responsibility, right? If this is a handoff, Braden McGregor is right there. So he's right there to take advantage of it. It also feels like maybe there's a missed responsibility out of one of your running backs, or I'm sorry, one of your linebackers in Barrett, because it doesn't make sense to me to have all of these bodies here, right? Boom, into the backfield. You got this. You do have Cam Good, obviously, looping around here, but it seems like your linebacker should be helping on this side, backside, and he gets too far play side here a little bit. So it's one of those things where I feel like the play was designed possibly to go towards this, right? Where I don't know exactly who Wimsatt is reading on this. Seems like he's reading this edge defender, but it's a little bit odd to me. It's a little bit hairy on this read. But to me, it's either give and it's supposed to go up the middle or a keep for Wimsatt off the edge. Those are your two options. And Wimsatt does good improvisation here where he makes the defense overreact with that step, and then he gets back inside. And there's a big gap there for him. So I think it's probably a combination of overreaction and not able to react backside for Barrett. But again, it's a good move. It's a good athletic move from your quarterback, and I can't really fault any one defender for Michigan. I think they had this play as it's designed dead to rights, and this is just improv out of your quarterback to find an open hole here. So good for him. And you got to give a guy some props. And give a lot of credit for McCarry Page flying up here. He does a good job cleaning this up, right? It is still a first down, but he reacts pretty quickly and closes that space out really well and makes a good tackle. That's a hard hit, right? And if the quarterback is going to run as much as Wimsatt is, make him feel it. So maybe Cam Good could have done a little bit better job as well on his stunt here. Maybe keep his ground a little bit. Is he held? I can't really tell from this angle. Doesn't maybe right there, but I think he moves a little bit too much, and that's a little bit too big of a gap. But anyway, this is more, I think, good play from the quarterback than anything else.
Everybody's kind of talking in the comments about, because you said athletic QB next week facing Nebraska. I don't think Jeff Sims is coming back in.
Yeah, I thought it was Heinrich, right? Is that his name?
Heinrich Harburg. But he had 150 yards the week before and over 100 yards rushing last week.
Heinrich did?
Yeah, he's got over 40. He's got over 40 attempts rushing. So they're probably going to run him quite a bit, I would imagine. But I'm with you. McGregor blows up this play. If it's a give to the running back, and Wimsatt just improvises. Typical Jesse Minter. It felt like there were some adjustments late. Yeah. I'm not really sure why they weren't expecting that a little bit more early on, maybe.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be shocked if we see something similar with Nebraska, where QB breaks off a few plays, and as long as you're not letting him get in the end zone, it's something they'll adjust and won't be damaging him throughout the game.
Yeah, I'll want to see what kind of runner Heinrich is compared to Wimsatt, because Wimsatt, I would say, he didn't strike the fear in me too much as a runner, but it's something that you honor, that you can see him breaking one. I don't know if Heinrich is that type where he can really break one.
Right. This is against Louisiana Tech, and so
I think this is a really good training sort of week for Michigan, right? Yeah. To be able to
21 carries against Northern Illinois for 98, 19 against La Tech for $157.
Okay. Yeah. And
I haven't watched the tape yet. I don't know if this is designed runs, scrambles, RP. I don't know what they're running there to get them out like that. But
that'll be interesting to watch. And I'm glad Michigan has this experience, because it's one thing if it's one thing if you go from, game 3 on the schedule and then game 9, where it's like, oh yeah, I remember what we did against Rutgers, and you have to call back upon that. In this case, they're back-to-back games, so it's very familiar for the scout team to give you a good look as well. So that's really valuable to have. Okay, moving into 1st and 10 here after that pickup. Another one where it seems like you had it dead to rights, but the guy's an athlete. You're bringing a blitz here off the edge for McCarry Page. Really hits the running back excellently. But this is one where, again, I don't know what the call here was. I can't imagine that Braden McGregor would do this without there being a call on, because he dives through this B gap like his hair is on fire, right? Very similar to what we see on McCarry Page. You see that interior move from Braden McGregor. It seems like there's something that's supposed to be on, similar to last play, but no one replaces him, right? So I'm not exactly sure what the call was from the defense, because there is no edge, right? And no one is replacing Braden McGregor on the edge. So if you're sending Braden McGregor inside here and you're setting this off the edge, one of two things. You're either expecting one of these two players to be able to cover both of these guys in the backfield, or someone missed their assignment on getting to the edge. And honestly, I'm not exactly sure who it is. If I'm going to make a guess, it's probably Braden McGregor shouldn't be getting this far inside. It doesn't seem like he should be getting pulled all the way down there. But again, give credit to Wimsatt, who's not even reading to the backside here, but then he adjusts. He sees where Michigan's defense, right? Cam Good is getting really good penetration here. Everyone is playing pretty sound on the play side, so it seems like it's either here or to the outside. And Wimsatt says, none of this looks good. I'm going to cut backside, and there's no one on the backside for edge defender. So it could be Colson. It could be Colson here, not replacing here, but this isn't like a traditional blast off the edge for the running back, and then your running back your linebacker come down here to replace. There's not a scrape exchange like you usually see, because I think this is backside. So I think, again, this is pretty similar to the last play, where I think this is improv out of your quarterback, and he makes a good decision here to not go play side and almost treats it like a counter. So again, I'm not 100% sure on that, but if it was planned, it's clever. If it wasn't, it's good improv for Wimsatt.
Yeah, it's just a funky play. You've got McGregor versus the left tackle, but it's the weak side in this play. The tight end's up on the top, right? So
yeah.
McGregor's moving in. The guard, basically moves straight up to the second level to take on Colson. Harrell's doing his job, but like you said, Wimsatt's improvised, gone the other way.
Right.
Page makes what looks like a really good play, but if he's supposed to be going after Wimsatt there, which, I mean, if you go back, 8 frames here, right before the give, if Page goes QB, then Wimsatt's locked up. If it's a give to the running back, then Rayshon Benny and Cam Good are right there, and Harrell's coming down too. So I don't know what the play design was supposed to be, but if Page stays with Wimsatt there, he's hitting him instead, or if it's a give, the running back's wrapped up. So again, I don't know if that's what he was supposed to do, but that makes it a very different play if that's what happens.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So again, takes a lot of balls for both Wimsatt and the running back here to recognize that blitz is coming and still execute, right? To not freak out, to still do that, and for the running back to take that on. I give him credit, right? I give him credit, and whatever happened, they got on that play. All right, moving on here, 2nd and 9. We have just off coverage here for Michigan. They did this on a couple plays. That this was another thing. I'm not sure exactly why Michigan is playing this far deep in what I believe to be is mod, which is man on demand. So they're bringing down their safety, Makari Page. They're bringing this down. I believe this is Quentin Johnson here. So he's getting to the center of the field. So the rule is these guys are deep thirds. If their guy goes vertical, they take them. The issue is there's no one here because no one is coming out into the flats, and they have such a huge cushion on them that there is just so much open space there. So against a guy like Wimsatt, who isn't known for his accuracy, again, I'm not sure why they're making this easy on him, right? This is an easy pitch and catch. So it's not like this was there all game. I feel like it was here for a couple drives. And again, this is something where I feel like Craig Schiano and Rutgers deserve some credit. They recognized the coverage that Michigan was in, the space that they were giving them, and said, listen, we're not going to try to beat you over the top here. We're just going to take what you're giving us. And that's a competent offensive coordinator and a competent team. That's what they're going to do. So I feel like, again, there were adjustments here, but this was a little puzzling to say the least. I don't know if you have any comments on that, Trevor.
I think this is the first real big sign that Josh Wallace is a Don Brown corner.
Yeah.
Right. So I personally, in my opinion, he thinks this is zone, and Saner's still supposed to pick him up.
You're right. Because you can see at the end,
he doesn't even react to him. He's almost like pointing over there, like, hey, get your guy. Right. So I think this is just inexperience in this type of coverage for Wallace personally, not being off a little bit, but obviously as soon as he sees those hands start to shuffle and a turn, he should be hauling ass up to the line. Right. Instead, he's pointing at Mike to go get him.
Right.
So I don't know if it's a complete breakdown and not knowing what the play was, or just not being good in this type of coverage. But
we get a little bit of a clue here because it does seem like Makari Page and Saner still are in the same coverage here, because you can assume that you have the same depth of this corner. So it's like it's mirrored on each side. So you would expect their responsibilities to be the same. Oops, didn't mean to do that. And you don't see Makari Page going out to the flat on like flat coverage either, right? He's not flying out here just like Mike Saner still isn't. Maybe it's a little different because he does have a slot receiver lined up over him in a way that Makari Page doesn't. But yeah, so maybe it's miscommunication. You expect Sanders to be over there, but it's probably a combination of, like you said, not being experienced in that sort of coverage, and expecting someone else to be out there. So,
and Michigan's probably anticipating Wallace to get picked on early in this game with Will Johnson back.
True.
And this is a bend don't break defense. They're not going to put him in a lot of press early to let somebody get deep over the top on him. So I wasn't shocked they were playing off, but yeah, on this play, I guess it's debatable on what the actual coverage call was. But
and correct me if I'm wrong, I only saw Josh Wallace. I'm not sure how many snaps Keyshawn Harris had with the return of Will Johnson.
Yeah, this was Will Johnson and Wallace and Sainristil's day.
Yeah.
So hold on, let me pull it up. Will Johnson led the team with 43 snaps. Josh Wallace had 42. Mike Sainristil had 37. The only other corner that got in was Keyshawn Harris, and he played 9 snaps.
Okay, so those are garbage time snaps. So we'll see how that shapes out to be, because I feel like I didn't even notice Will Johnson out there, which is usually a good thing, right? That's usually what you want out of your corners. If they're not getting thrown at, if they're not making mistakes, then that usually means a lot of respect is given to you from the offense. So we'll see how that continues to form. I like what we saw out of Keyshawn Harris in the first couple games.
Agreed.
We'll see if he holds that down or if there's going to continue to be rotation. But I think Josh Wallace also did well.
Yeah, that's not a big pick on Wallace. Wallace did great in the first 3 games, and he did really good in this one as CB2.
Yeah,
and then you still like what Harris did with the time he got, and Jair Hill and DJ Waller, a couple of young guys that got some good reps early that I think's given depth at that position.
Yeah, great point. This is just where I was kind of banging my head against the wall, I feel like, for the first couple games, where everyone knows it's 3rd and short. Where is Michigan going with the ball, right? Look at just the defense selling out. Everyone knows the ball is going to Blake Corum, right? Ball is going to Blake Corum. They do this. They just ram him into the line of scrimmage. That's what they do. That's what Michigan does. And oops, no, they don't, right? Where you don't have to run J.J. McCarthy all that often. You don't have to, but just get it into the heads of the defense, right? These are easy yards. These are give me those yards. And it's easy for your quarterback, right? He doesn't even have to get out of bounds here, right? If there's a defender right here and he needs to slide down, fine, do it, right? He happens to pick up an extra, 10 yards after the fact. But all this is going to do in the future is get into the minds of these players here, this player here, that there's possibly something coming to the outside. We'll have a play later that shows exactly that. And that just makes the job of all of these guys that much easier when you have just a little bit of hesitancy out of these guys on what's going to happen in the backfield, right? So I feel like Michigan kept it maybe a little bit too vanilla with not running J.J. McCarthy in these situations. It's easy yards, free yards, I would even call them. And I'm just glad that is back on the table here. They ran J.J. McCarthy, probably between 5 and 10 times for designed runs. I think probably closer to 5 than 10. And they were all of this variety, right? You want to sell out, you want to go hell bent on doing that, go for it. And we'll just take what we have on the edge with our quarterback, who probably runs in the 4.5, 4.6 range. So it's great to see.
Give me 12 personnel. I'm going to keep saying this, man. I love Barner and Loveland in the game at the same time. I love them lining up next to each other. I'm with you. Like, I know you don't want JJ hurt, right? I don't know if you have it in here, the run where he literally goes backwards to get out of bounds.
I do. I'm pretty sure I do. Yeah.
So that's clearly been planted in his head, but why are you not going to take 20 free yards?
Right.
I get you don't want him necessarily going up the middle and taking any big hits, but if they're giving you this, you take it. And then again, back to what we were talking about with, the different things you can do with this play. I'm sure if you give it to Corum, he's probably surprisingly getting it. Right. But again, I love the 2 tight ends out there, and Barner's been arguably the best run blocker. Loveland's not up there with him, but he's good enough. And they're both really good receiving threats. And on 3rd and 2, you just have so many options here.
Right.
Once you start trusting JJ to make some pre-snap reads and adjustments.
Yeah. And it's something where, again, I understand that even when this read wasn't live in early games, future defenses were probably planning for it, right? They're probably saying there's a possibility he's going to keep it, whatever it may be. But you're making the job on everybody on the offense that much harder when it isn't live, right? So I don't think there's a reason really to hold back on it because, again, if you're appropriately running this play, the worst case scenario is that this guy doesn't go as hard, right? He probably breaks this down right here. And then you have a one-on-one race to the sideline, right? It's not like this guy's always going to be flying in towards the quarterback because then you'll have a give read, right? You're reading him and you're either keeping or giving the ball away. So I don't think it doesn't put your quarterback at risk in any way. And putting it on film like this just makes it more difficult for a defense. I don't see any downsides to it. This play of anything else, and I usually don't put things like this on film, this drove me crazy because I wondered a couple things on this. I do think the clock on the field is probably a little bit fast. So they blow the whistle now, right? Like it says 1 second. I bet it's actually on 0. The clocks don't always align. So I'm not going to say this is a bad call on the refs because there was 1 second left. It doesn't always line up. So I'm not going to discredit them on this. But this was, and I don't know this for sure, but when you have the line setting up at 13 seconds, I feel like you should be able to get that off. So I'm going to actually put this on James Turner more so than I think the staff. I think he needs to speed up a little bit right here. When he's here, he needs to be set quicker, and the ball needs to be snapped right about now. To me, there's no reason it takes this long to get ready for a field goal. So I feel like that's something to improve upon, right? But to see that field goal go through, and then the next play, it misses, in a tie game, that irked me like no other. It was crazy. And honestly, I don't think it's even a case where you should call a timeout. It's just the fact that you needed to call a timeout, right? Because you're still effectively icing your own kicker if you call a timeout and you don't have to back up 5 yards. So I don't know who to blame, right? Were they deciding to go for it on third and got the call in late? But to me, when you are lining up with 13, maybe 12 seconds on the play clock, you should be able to get that snap off. So probably a combination of things, but I think it's maybe a little bit more on the holder and kicker to speed that up, recognize the play clock a little bit more, and have plan B of setup to maybe get into your back step a little bit quicker. So frustrating, really, really frustrating. Really,
I agree with everything you said. That's not delay. How many times have we heard refs have to explain to us, well, when it hit 0, we actually then have to look down and then count to 1 again.
That's true.
Right? And that's right at the buzzer. So I agree with everything you said, but I have never seen a delay called the instant it hits 0 on the screen. And all my years watched, I don't know how many times I've been like, that's not delay. Well, we see it and then we look down. So if they snap it by then, so whatever.
That's true.
I agree.
That's true.
And then, we're all going to miss Moody.
Right.
James Turner is a really good field goal kicker. We brought up his stats from the previous year. Jake Moody was good enough to go in the 3rd round of the NFL draft. Yeah. You just aren't going to get that guy back.
Right.
Right. So maybe Adam Samaha, I think is how you say it.
Yep.
Maybe he's the next one. But no matter how good Turner is, he'll never be. We said there's going to be a drop off because you don't get a lot of Jake Moody's.
Right. Yeah. And first of all, I hate this new scoreboard. I just think it's very grating. It's really bad. But I feel like there were multiple plays where coaches were really hustling to call a timeout with 1 second still on the clock here, on the play clock. where usually you see that happen when there's like 0 on the clock, right? And they're about to throw the flag. So I agree with you. That was extremely fast, a call delay of game, but it did seem consistent with the rest of the behavior. But I've never seen, if that is the case, I've never seen such a disparity between what evidently was the stadium clock and the broadcast clock. It seemed like it was way off.
Even the refs' reactions on the field, though.
Yeah,
right. Like,
that's fair.
Not the kickoff.
Right.
So it was definitely, even if there is a slight delay, it was definitely close enough that like I'm sure we've seen plenty of that. But anyway,
right. Yeah, you've seen a lot worse. Yeah. This was just great play from the defense, right? Tie game, 3rd and 1 here. Time for the defense to step up. We saw it. I feel like we've seen it a bunch where when games are maybe not going the way you want, right? Against like Bowling Green, the defense able to really step up. And this is one where everyone does their job. Everyone does really well to beat their blocks, right? This play is not won unless multiple people are making that. It's really hard to stop a 3rd and 1 up the middle. I feel like that's such an underrated play. It's highlighted by a couple guys. Of course, you got Chris Jenkins working his way through the play side A gap right here. He's going to cross the face of the center here. Watch Chris Jenkins, 94, just really catapult his way. He grabs the shoulders there, right? The front of the shoulders of the center. Boom. Really accelerates his way into that guard.
310 pounds doing that, man.
Yeah, and it's almost like he is sped up a little bit more than the other guys with how fast he's reacting there. He is catapulting himself into that gap. And that really is what creates the play. But you have to give credit to everyone on the backside as well. Like you look at Kenneth Grant fighting through here. Good edge assignment here coming from behind there for Makari Page. And then even play side, you have really good job from, Chris Jenkins just does create this play, right? Because no one's able to get out to Houseman because of how much space and Chris Jenkins occupying these two offensive linemen. So no one can get out to the linebacker, take advantage of that, right? He gets his head in the hole, able to assist on the tackle. And then Mike Barrett, I don't think was really needed on this, but he has a tough job, right? He has this free releasing lineman, 69 here, not doing a very nice job. He gets that initial hit on him, but good shed there from Michael Barrett. That's really tough to do against an offensive lineman for a linebacker. So really nice job all around. It's obviously probably one of your best players in Chris Jenkins spurring that, but everyone else also doing their job, playing assignment football, not allowing that like second push. I feel like you almost always see get the first down. That is an authoritative stop when I feel like Michigan really needed one.
I do like the call out of Ernest Houseman here, though. This is kind of what his role has become. The linebackers have been so good this year.
Yeah.
And, we thought about Jaden Hood was a guy that was really playing up in fall camp, that he would kind of back up Junior Colson in the Mike role. And then we would see Houseman and Barrett at the will. Granted, they're both inside linebackers, but they're still Mike and Will assignments. Yeah. What we've seen is they just rotate those three guys anywhere. Houseman's playing Mike here. And this is just kind of, we saw it when he was on Nebraska and Michigan played them last year. He just disrupts the run game. He only had 3 tackles on 20 snaps. All 3 of them were stops, which means it was a failure for the offense. And I think he's now like 12 for 12 on the year or something. Like every tackle he makes is a failure for the offense. Yeah. So yes, big assist to Jenkins. He creates the hole, but like Houseman just does a really good job of being at the right place consistently.
And one thing about that is linebackering is one of the toughest things you can do in football. It takes a ton of mental processing. And I'm not just saying that as a former linebacker. Oh, I was making this joke strictly for Trevor. Okay, I'm going to restart the joke now that you're back. I was going to say being a linebacker. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay. Being a linebacker, one of the tougher things you can do in football. And I'm saying that as a former linebacker. So obviously it must be true. But how much more valuable is his contribution able to even be possible because of having Michael Barrett there, right? Michael Barrett, who converted into being a linebacker, he had to learn the position and really has become an expert in Michigan's defense overall. So being able to kind of coach a guy through that process, and Ernest Hausmann on how he became a linebacker. Obviously, Hausmann is a more, I would say, fitting linebacker in his body size and whatnot, but such a great value add to continue to have Michael Barrett as that sort of mentor and obviously a phenomenal contributor to the team. And I feel like that accelerated Hausmann's path tremendously to get him up to speed in this defense. It's really cool.
Yeah, anybody who's followed my work with Maize and Blue Review knows what a massive Michael Barrett fan I am of him on and off the field. His story, his leadership, his family is incredible. Really, really lucky for Michigan that he decided to come back and be the old man for a year. As he said. So, yeah, great call out. I could talk about Michael Barrett all day. Great player.
All right, here we go. 2nd and 9. And this was one that I was curious heading into this game what the rotation would be between Michigan's tackles. At this point, this isn't, and I baited you into this. This isn't a case where a tackle is at fault. This is Keegan actually getting beat in a scenario that I don't think I've had to call that out pretty much at all. But I do think that maybe Ladarius Henderson at left tackle did cause a little bit of trepidation out of Keegan, right? Because it looks like they're trying to figure out what the jobs of these two these two offensive linemen are going to be with these two guys, right? Because you see the eyes here of Ladarius Henderson. He's sizing up this edge defender, sizing him up. Where's he going to go, right? So you do have Keegan who has to assist here, right? They're kind of double teaming here based on his movement. One of them has to fall off and take his responsibility. So this guy's going inside here, and Keegan's just not quite quick enough to get a hand on him and be able to pick him up. So, give Rutgers some credit. Like I feel like they came into this game having a pretty stout run defense, and I haven't really highlighted a whole lot of their good defensive plays, but they were able to play Michigan pretty tough. And this was one where I can't remember last time I called Keegan doing something wrong or missing a block here. And I think it's just a better play there from 17 than anything else. So sometimes you got to tip your cap. And I think this also illustrates how much Rutgers was selling out for the run, right? You look at all of the bodies they have in here. Obviously, Michigan has everyone pretty much in at the line of scrimmage, but they're flying up to the ball pretty quickly as well. So, yeah, that comes down to, if Keegan gets that block, right, and I think the safety ultimately probably would make the play, but you don't want to count out Blake Corum with one-on-one battle with the safety here, right? So, give credit 17, and me calling out Keegan for missing a block is something that I don't have to do very often.
Yeah, this is where we saw Henderson go to left tackle, Barnhart moved to right, which was, I'd say, heading into fall camp, what the expected starting five was going to be, and then towards the end of fall camp, it seemed like it would be the Barnhart Hinton combo that we've got. I'm still so torn on this because this is a great example of what we talked about early in the season, which is the continuity piece. Right. This offensive line needs to play together. I know Dennis and the coach, Scar, talked a little bit about this after the game, and Scar does like some of the rotation they're doing there because they have the players to do it. And I don't want to pick on any one player, but for me, in my eye, even, if the assignment piece miss on Keegan here, leave that out for a second. Henderson has a great block here, and so does Barnhart on the right. Barnhart has played his whole career on the right. We've got Trente Jones in there as the sixth offensive lineman in this set. This feels like the starting five to me.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see them get a full game. You talked about doing the Michigan method, and then you didn't because you all saw the same thing we did, that the group needed continuity and you wanted to roll with them. But there's some glaring gaps right now. And right. I'd like to see what happens because if this does become the starting five, you're a third of the way through the season already.
Yeah.
That's how
Yeah.
quick college football is, man. We're literally a third of the way through the season already.
Yeah.
So
You're running out of time, and
exactly.
being able to know what that guy next to you, how they move, when they move. I mean, these are less than split second decisions and tendencies that you have to rep over and over and over at game speed, which is, admittedly really difficult to replicate in practice. It is. You can only go so far with that. And then when you add the additional variable of different defenders on actual game day, they're not going to give you the same look that scout team is. You are trying to make that delta as small as possible through a week of practice, but it's always going to be different. So the less variables you can add, which is continuity, exactly what you said, having those same guys, knowing their habits, knowing their tendencies.
Which Zinter already has with Barnhart.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So at that point, I'm confident with Nugent. We think he's taken a big stride.
Yep.
Jones has really settled into that sixth offensive lineman role. That's just what he's going to be at this point. I think Henderson just makes sense at left at this point. I really do. And again, I don't know more than coaches. They're in there during practices. They're in the meeting rooms. I get it. But if you're doing the rotation anyway, give them a full game.
Right. Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
I agree. We'll see how that continues on through the season, because I think that's the most interesting position to continue to watch. This was another case where get your wide receiver moving, right? Get him moving. And I love the timing of this, and you can tell how important the timing of this is because of the eyes of JJ McCarthy. He sends him in motion. He's starting his clap. Like he's doing a very quick clap here, and his eyes are over there for quite a bit of time. He wants the ball snapped while they're stacked. What I mean by stacked is just one in front of the other, right? Because this play is all about momentum. Get your guy in motion. These guys are stacked, right? And if we go back to before the motion, what was the alignment? Press, right? So they want to be able to get their hands on Roman Wilson. They want to be able to be physical with him to not let him get up to speed. So running him in motion, and then boom, you're going across the field. Good luck to anybody keeping that up, right? And I feel like in the past, I'm thinking kind of about like Nico Collins and how I think we can pretty confidently say was underused and not maximizing the talents he brings. Roman Wilson out of high school had like a clocked 4.28 or something crazy out of high school, right? How do you take advantage of that on the field? That is going to be impossible for pretty much anybody to defend. You send him at full speed on motion across the field. Good luck to anybody covering that. That is how many people have a 4.28, maybe faster than that guy on the field at any given time. Not many people. And it doesn't take, like, this is pretty good defense because this is a good route, right? He's faking going vertical here. That little step there I really like from Roman Wilson. If you're going to run man, right, this is what Michigan's going to attack. And it forces defenses to get creative, right? You're going to have to like drop a guy, right, off of, you're going to have to get really creative, like I said, with your coverages to address something like this. Because again, we get back to that thing I said earlier with a couple of the trick plays. This feels like you can't defend it. This feels like when Michigan was going up against Ohio State when they were just sending Jackson Smith and Jigba across the field. And it's just like, we don't have bodies to cover that speed. This speed is just too fast. It's just stupid. So that's something where Michigan, and I brought up the Nico Collins thing, is because this feels like Michigan figured out how to take advantage of a guy's skill set, where maybe he's not as good releasing off the line of scrimmage, right? Maybe that's not his skill set. But you know what he can do? He can run pretty damn fast, and he can run a pretty decent route, right? And at full speed, he's able to execute this extremely well. So really fun to see. And it's simple when you execute it this well, right? When the offense does things like this, it reminds me of those Ohio State, like Urban Meyer, Ohio State offenses, where it's just like this is just a team letting a guy run fast and be the athlete he is. And that's all this play is.
It's worth remembering Roman Wilson was a speed and space recruit.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah, he was.
On this real quick, Wilson should be utilized more in the slot. I'm assuming you also read my stock reports every week. Wilson and Morris have been moving closer and closer to the middle in terms of slot share. Roman had a 90% slot snap rate last year, and he's kind of been playing more of the Ronnie Bell Z role. I don't have it in front of me right now, but his slot stats on this year are ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I think Morris coming along, being healthy, Darius Clemens as well, if he's, finally able to be healthy and kind of play what I thought would be that Andrell Anthony role. I think we'll see Wilson in the slot more because he's just ridiculous, whether it's motioning him to get him into that spot first or lining him up there. Him, Loveland, and Edwards, just ridiculous on the inside.
Right. Yeah.
That's another thing on this play too. Edwards ends up staying in pass pro, but again, if we're talking about iterations, Loveland could release deep here. Edwards could come out into the flat. There's just so many options.
Yep. Lots of things you can do. And I didn't even take a look at pass pro on this, but you're bringing a blitz here. Relatively decent job from Keegan to pick this blitz up. It's pretty tough blitz to pick up. Get off the edge, boom, boom, a little looper here. So you got a toughest job here from Keegan to recognize where this looper is coming from and get a body on him. So it does good enough job getting off. You maybe like him to get over a little bit quicker on that. But JJ is able to stay pretty calm in the pocket. Repositions just a little bit, right? I feel like he recognizes, this is going to be open, keeps his eyes downfield, but just kind of steps towards Barnhart, who's doing a really good job on the edge there. Step towards him right there. That little adjustment is really important and gives him a really clear path on his throw there. So good job there.
Real quick, I found it.
Oh.
Roman Wilson has 10 receptions, 151 yards, and 5 touchdowns from the slot this year.
Holy cow. Wow. Yeah, those are some stats. All right, let's do a couple more plays. This will be another two-parter. I'm sorry, Trevor, that I keep doing two-parters on you. But
no, I think it's cool. I think people get both versions of cut-ups and get your more laid-back, just you coverage in the second half. So, no, I like the way we're doing this.
This was another one where I just love JJ McCarthy's decision-making in this game a lot more. And again, I feel like they're probably in his ear about certain things like this as well, right? Because in certain cases, sometimes I feel like JJ McCarthy, and I don't want to say he tries to go for the big play too often, but we've seen his ability to do that, to extend plays and to maybe hold on a little bit longer, run down line of scrimmage to find that open wide receiver. In this case, I love that he just looks out, sees open field, and just runs, right? That's beautiful. Just go, right? Again, it's free yards. And it's hard to actually see down the field to see what was out there. But I also wonder how much of this was actually designed to go this way, or if the staff saw that, hey, they're running man a lot, they're not running zone, so if we run this sort of look, this is going to be open. Because a lot of the routes here, right, you would expect, at least I would expect, the initial read to be here. There's only one route over here. Maybe they like the matchup. I think that's that might be Tyler Morris over to this side. Looks like Tyler Morris. Yeah. So maybe they like that matchup, but really it's interesting for me to see his eyes go from that middle safety to that route where you have Colson Loveland and, a little bit more happening on the left side there with Donovan Edwards releasing, right? So it seems like you have a lot to read here coming out of the backfield. You got a lot going on over here, but the eyes go from this safety over to this route. And that's odd for me for that to be the first read. So I do wonder if it's something where it's listen, the running man, there's going to be a big open gap here on the right side. Let's get you running out there and try to make them respect that a little bit more. So really interesting to see him take that right away. And I feel like Michigan has a lot of opportunities to do that. moving forward of these, like, technically they're passes, right? And you have a lot of passing options, but this is a big play, right? It's not a reception, but it's what, 30 yards, 20, 30 yards, and you'll take that all day.
They had 3 rushes for 60 yards. The only thing I could think of is this is supposed to be Fred Moore's route, and he gets hung up with his defender for a little too long, and JJ sees the safety sitting in there.
Could
and
be.
then the pressure starts to get there as well. But either way, again, take what they give you, right?
Yep.
I'll bring up Ohio State and give them a compliment real quick. If CJ Stroud had done that more, he might have been one of the best college quarterbacks of all time.
Oh, without a doubt.
What he did against Georgia, where he was willing to run, that was probably the best game of his career.
Yeah.
And we talked a lot about what we considered cons with Stroud, but his touch and just accuracy, the dude made NFL throws. There's a reason he was the second pick, right? If he would have just taken those chunk yards, I mean, he's winning at least one Heisman.
Yeah.
He's probably keeping Ohio State in some of those games late against Michigan, right? Yeah. 100%. So love seeing that from JJ. Again, he's safe, 23 yards on to the next one.
Yeah, and shout out, we got another Osentoski in the chat.
Wait, what?
Yeah, that's my brother. He said
okay.
the route. You're like, what are the odds?
I was literally going to say, he's got to be your brother. That's hilarious.
You go to the thumb area of Michigan, man, and it's like Smith, the last name is. I swear to you, they're all over the place there. But said the routes are all going the other way, except one almost had to be a mistake or designed one read or run. So, yeah, it could be. And I love those concepts where, again, make it easy on your quarterback.
The Moore and Loveland exchange looked a little awkward.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, this is
hello, fellow Toski.
Fellow Toski in the chat.
That's awesome.
All right, let's make these two the last plays, and I'll be back. I don't know, it'll either be tomorrow or Tuesday or something. But I wanted to gripe a little bit about the refs on this one. One thing I really like to do that I wanted to call out in a lot of dozens of us.
I hope you are all the GOAT in what you do in your respective industries.
The thing I loved Michigan doing a lot was they did a ton of this. I don't remember if they did this earlier in the season, but I really noticed on this one where JJ McCarthy would clap a bunch. They seemed like they did a bunch of these, like, I don't know exactly what the call is, but it's not on first clap, right? They'll do a lot of claps just to try to see the motion, to see where is the attack coming from, right? Where, because Michigan goes on the clap, they are looking to see who's making an initial reaction towards the line of scrimmage when JJ McCarthy does that clap. And he calls that out, and that's to give the offensive line a little bit more information, right? Knowing who's coming, that's going to give your offensive line a little bit more information. Now, the defense can use that to their advantage to make it look like you're coming on a blitz and then dropping back, right? And in this play, that player actually doesn't do that, but I thought that was interesting that JJ McCarthy was doing that Michigan was routinely doing that throughout the game to try to get a little bit more insight on the defensive call there. So, all right, this is my main gripe, and I'm glad we're ending on the night on this because I'm going to complain a little bit, and I'm very passionate about this. You're going to see passionate Steven come out here.
Oh,
yeah. So yeah. So I really like this play. Again, I love the use of motion. I really love the use of motion overall because, again, Michigan gets a lot of insight here. They're messing with a lot of responsibility here. You're stacked, right? You're sending across here. You're sending them back. You're just messing with the assignments here quite a bit. It doesn't really work in this case, but you're putting a lot on the defense just by a little motion, right? You're not really doing a whole lot as an offense, but you're making the defensive backs think a lot and shift a lot in their thought process. So good route here from Colston Loveland, able to get a little bit of a push off there. Again, he's really crafty with that, right? Really crafty little push off. They're not going to call that 99% of the time. Really good ball, really well-placed ball. This one is on a short out, right? Because we're on the near hash here. So not as difficult as the throws. We saw the one he missed to Roman Wilson earlier in the game. That's on the money. And it gives the opportunity that Colston Loveland needs because this pass is on a rope. Gives him the time he needs to stretch the ball out towards the line marker. Now, here we go. Is this a first down? I don't know for sure. It sure as hell is close. Okay. Right here, if you look at where the sticks are, that's pretty damn close. Now, the main issue here, we don't have the down the sideline view. If we have down the sideline, right, like say we're
If only they had cones with cameras in it where we could have some sort of technology.
But this is the thing that really made me mad. Okay, look where the ball is around. I feel like this is a reasonable location. Okay, at worst, the point of the ball is right at this hash, right? You draw a line right here. At worst, that's not a straight line. At worst, it's right here, and it's 4th and an inch. Okay. Here's the thing that really irked me. They spotted the ball back here, which is just crazy. Just crazy. A full yard short. And I don't even understand that. It's like they didn't even think that he
have to round down or something.
Yeah, it's like he didn't even extend the ball at all, right? Because if you want to say that he extended it and the ball went out right here, I'll disagree with you, but I can accept it, right? If you said he extended, but by the time he was fully extended, it didn't get to the 22-yard line, I can accept that. But this is egregious, an egregious miss, okay? So that's number one. It's egregiously at least half a yard short, if not more so. Here's the other thing. When they bring up Steve here, which I don't claim him as a fellow Steve, is look at the angles that they're showing here. These, and excuse my language, these are shit angles. You're not going to be able to tell anything from this. You cannot, and they kept showing these angles, and this is the only one that's valuable. And I'll tell you why. Because this is the only one that gives you a vantage of how far from the sideline is the ball when it's fully extended. Yes. Okay. We don't know exactly, but we can probably say
you do though with the other clip.
Exactly.
Put the two together.
When he's
now know when he was fully extended.
Right.
He wasn't out of bounds yet.
Right. He's fully extended right about here. And it's where the ball is above, right? Until it crosses out of bounds, this is still live. So we can say, right, with this, remember this like weird ankle angle where he's at, he's pretty fully extended here. And that seems to be at least reasonably in bounds. He probably crosses out of bounds right about here. And at that point, he's already bringing the ball back in. If only we had an angle that showed down the line of scrimmage here. Never once in the replay did they show the actual broadcast angle to sync this up with the actual other angle here that I have. It's crazy. It's crazy that they don't have that angle and they kept showing us this. What is this going to tell you? So it's mind-boggling that you can broadcast this angle to millions of people, but the review cannot bring this up and sync with this angle. What are we doing? This is a how many billion-dollar industry, and you can't sync up this angle with this angle. I could do that live for you in 2 minutes, and these guys
really just did.
Yeah, and these guys, a billion-dollar industry, can't do it. And yeah, why don't we have the view down the pylon cam, like you said, Trevor? Why don't we have a yardstick?
We do. They exist.
I don't
use them in games.
What is going on?
Derek had this out, the GPS and balls. Again,
there's so many things.
It exists. Soccer has it already.
There's so many things on this yard marker, right? Say you just put a little GoPro and just like have that there, right? Because these things are moving all the time. So I get that if you don't want to put one on this. This is just there.
No, hold on. Let's try and find it. Go ahead.
It's the craziest thing in sports. Crazy. It's crazy to me. I'm going to clip this up and put it out on Twitter. And even if you're an Ohio State fan, I feel like you can't call me crazy. Like, what are we doing? We have the angle. This is the angle. This and this. Be done with it. What the hell's going on? I don't.
They're using those in the NFL already.
Yeah,
they're putting the marker down. I think the thing that kills me is another angle. I'm going to take this real quick.
Sure.
Just the purpose of replay in general. Replay was never intended to re-officiate a play.
No.
Right? How many times a game does a guy run the ball and a ref walks in and grabs the ball and just goes, screw it, here.
Right.
Right. And they just put it down. anywhere. There's bad spots all game long. We saw against TCU last year after the interception that led to the Roman Wilson. He's down at the 1. They spotted it like 3 yards back, right? But because this was for a first down and it was close, now we're going to watch this tape and try and re-officiate it.
Yeah.
Right. And I've always liked the 10 dudes in a bar stool rule. When we're watching this on TV and you're sitting at a bar with 10 dudes, you can go, oh, that's a catch. No, that's first down. Right.
I call it the Dave rule. Just call up some dad in like Idaho. Hey, Dave. And what do you think?
I don't want the ref walking to the sideline to look at the Windows 11 tablet in the little box. A dude can be in a studio somewhere and figure this out in 30 seconds. And be done with it and move on. But again, like you said, even if you want to rule him short, why are you going a full yard back?
Yeah, it makes no sense. They put this ball with nose on this yard line. That's where they think this ball is. It's egregious. It's crazy. So that's where I'm gonna call it there. Because I won't get that.
You got me all fired up.
I got you all fired up. Well, here. I'll make y'all fired up with how.
Wait, this isn't going to help.
How Blake Corum, how Blake Corum goes flying through.
So here. Good. Yep.
And I'll call this out for the next episode as well. Keep in your mind how hard Blake Corum is barreling himself into this. Right, that's gotta hurt whoever's butt he runs into. I feel like that's Drake Nugent's back right there, but he probably creates an extra half yard just by momentum alone. Right. And that's what you need from your short yardage back. And that's why I feel like we all like Blake Corum, because even though this guy comes flying off the edge here, boom, you just go flying. Make that guy irrelevant, right? Sure, he hits him at the hip, but at the speed Blake Corum is barreling himself into line of scrimmage, that momentum's not falling anywhere but forward. He's going to find a way to get that 1 yard that shouldn't even exist. So
great push by the offensive line too.
Yeah.
By the time Corum gets there, they're at the line to gain, right? They're moving forward. So Henderson gets down low. We're seeing Keegan, Nugent, Zinter always ending up on the other side, right?
Yep.
This is the Michigan last year, right?
Yeah.
We're going to get the yard, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just annoying. It feels like, fine, we'll get it again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I didn't want to necessarily like linger on that call, but man, if they didn't pick this call up,
Massive.
I was going to be, it's 7-7. This is your drive, like last drive going into halftime. That's huge. That's a huge, huge call. So anyway, Michigan made it irrelevant. Shouldn't have had to. Okay. All right.
Awesome.
Take us out, Trevor.
So here's my deal with replay in terms of, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, here we go.
Join us for the next
episode. Get a cup of
Right.
coffee. Here we go.
Somebody, oh no. Derek with an observation on my beverage choice this evening. It has, like I said, it has been a month or so. So
there you go.
We'll see. No, good to be back. Another great episode of Cut Ups here with Toski, the GOAT. I think, and this is the first half. People were probably feeling a little angsty. I do think this was a strong finish. Toski, tomorrow or Tuesday, we'll get into the second half. I think there's a lot of good to be found in that. And just kind of a reminder, this Michigan does this, right? The Rutgers game in 21 was frustrating. Maryland, the kickoff game for the Big Ten schedule last year, had some frustrating moments. This is just a team that builds up throughout the season. So I do have some areas of concern. We didn't, we talked about the tackles a little bit. We didn't really get into Donovan. It'll be interesting to continue to break that down as the season goes on. But as Michigan heads out for their first road test against Nebraska, we will obviously have all the coverage for you all week over at michigan.rivals.com. Myself and Brock will actually be heading to Lincoln. I'm super excited. You're going too?
Oh, yeah, buddy.
Did I know this? Yes, I did know this because we talked about my hotel is very close to the prison.
Oh, God.
And I remember I told you, we'll have to grab a beer, but just make sure. Yeah. Okay. I forgot.
Yeah.
Cool. So we're all going to get together. Excellent.
We're going to figure it out.
Hell yeah. Are you driving or flying?
Flying.
Yeah. I don't want to get into it. We will be driving. So anyway, make sure again, head over to michigan.rivals.com. Josh has already been posting some intel heading into practice this week before their matchup with Nebraska. Make sure you're liking and subscribing us here on this YouTube channel so you know when Toski does randomly decide to go live and do his hangouts, or when this show comes on, or Hail to the Podcast, our podcast that'll be firing up tomorrow night, or Dennis, who's live every single day covering Michigan football on this channel as well. As always, those of you that have joined us live, we appreciate you taking part in the conversation, your comments, your questions. Like we say with everything we do with Maize and Blue Review, we want this to be community driven and feel like we're doing this for you guys, with you guys, not talking at you. So I hope that's how it feels. Real big fan of you guys coming in and joining us. So other than that, for Toski, I will sign off and say thank you guys. And this has been another episode of Cut Up's Film Review, brought to you